about this. And can everyone see my screen? Maybe Zach, you can confirm, Danielle. Cool. So yeah, the topic today is really fun. And a lot of what you hear about or like webinars you see or things on LinkedIn end up being about when you think about AI in support or post sales, you're often thinking about AI deflection and trying to answer questions just automatically with AI. But there's a whole nother part of post sales and support and success that includes knowledge management. And this actually ends up being, especially for B2B companies, an even bigger part of what AI can do, but it's much less talked about. So super excited to chat about this topic today with Zach, Danielle, and Jess, and kind of go through their experiences, how they think about it. And yeah, super honored to do that. So the quick agenda that we're going to go through here. So first, I have to shill my company. I'm sorry, that'll take a couple minutes in the beginning. So we'll go through just quick intro on Pylon and things that we're thinking about on the knowledge management side. We're going to go to the panelist discussion. I'll go through intros for everyone. And then we'll go to a Q&A. And if you have questions throughout, you can always just drop them into the Q&A section. We can see them live as you're either commenting or like asking those questions that can be upvoted that we'll get to at the end. So yeah, really excited for this. And I'll dive in with my quick advertisement. I'm sorry, ad blocker won't work today. So quick about Pylon. I'm one of the co-founders. We're building the first customer support platform for B2B companies. Our goal is really to bring together the entire post-sales team to work together in one place instead of having support, success, solutions, professional services all live in separate systems. We're bringing all those teams together and actually really just combining all those products into one. A lot of people like us because you can offer support over shared Slack channels or Microsoft Teams instead of the traditional ones. AI batteries are included, as you'll learn today. And of course, you want a modern tool. So quickly, just setting the stage for how a lot of people are thinking about AI and knowledge management. Let's go through quickly a lot of how people used to think about this. So you find gaps in your help center, your documentation, you write articles, and then you kind of try to keep your knowledge base clean. And so, before you might have a question and you shoot it into a Slack channel and say, hey, here's a gap. We should go write an article for this. And then this is missing and supposed to say something. We'll ignore it. Also, when you write articles, you would reference a bunch of old tickets and then write articles from scratch. And then in terms of keeping knowledge bases clean, you check for duplicate content, you try to maintain consistent formatting. And all of this is a lot of work. And it rightfully so, because this ends up being really important for your customers. New ways that we're seeing the industry move are, hey, AI can help you discover what gaps exist in your knowledge base and help you find references to the questions that people are asking about those topics. AI can help draft articles for you. So not like completely just rewrite them and publish them, but kind of human in the loop style, just help you create things from scratch faster. And even based on previous responses you've given to other customers. And then finally, having AI potentially detect similar content so you're not rewriting the same thing, and then even writing articles into specific formats for consistency. Okay, so we're done with the ad. I'm really excited now to go to our panelists here. And so, yeah, we can go through one by one, and I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourself, introduce your role, where are you based, and then what your company does to start. So Jess, we can start with you.
Yeah, nice to meet everybody. Thank you for joining. My name's Jess Herbert. I work for Canvas Medical, and I'm our Senior Manager of Customer Experience. Canvas Medical is an EMR EMR at heart that is accelerating everyday medicine. So we have APIs, SDKs, database models, everything to help customize our users to help care for patients.
Thanks, Danielle.
Hey everyone, I'm Danielle. I'm based in Dublin, Ireland. I'm the head of support engineering in Spacelift. And Spacelift is essentially a platform that will help you automate and optimize your infrastructure as code workflows. So what we basically do is we make managing your cloud infrastructure a lot more efficient, scalable, and secure.
And maybe I'll add in one more part of the question. Danielle, how long have you been at Spacelift? And then also, how long have you been in the industry overall?
So I've been in Spacelift coming up 2 years in next month. And for the DevOps industry, I'd say maybe 2 or 3, but cloud infrastructure, I've been in for about 5, 6 years. This is like more kind of specialized. And for this one, I'd say about 2 to 3 years.
Awesome. And Jess, really quick, rewinding to you. What about yourself?
Yeah, I have been at Canvas for it's going on 7 years, I believe, this year. So I was actually our first customer-facing employee way back in 2018. And before that, I wasn't actually in customer support directly, but I was caring for patients in clinical care, where I then moved to kind of at the elbow or side-by-side support for EHR users, and then kind of evolved to here.
Awesome. And then Zach, sorry for rewinding there.
Totally cool. My name is Zach, and I do support things at Panther. And Panther is a cloud SIM. So basically, if you don't know what a SIM is, it basically collects a bunch of logs across different platforms, and then you can run detections. And it's, security teams can use it to do investigations based on like things that they're seeing in the logging. And then the other questions, I live in Ann Arbor, which I already said. I said that earlier. I've been in cybersecurity for about 8 years now. And yeah, I think was there anything else that I needed to answer?
Yeah, that's great.
Cool.
And maybe starting with you on questions about knowledge management, like how do you think about knowledge management? What are like the core components as you think about it broadly?
So I think like in terms of knowledge management, like in the most general terms, it's just the process of creating, updating, and maintaining, common questions or issues to like quickly solve problems, whether it's people on internal teams or like the best thing about it is like putting that stuff in front of customers for them to like self-serve, so that way they like never actually engage with support teams. But yeah, like knowledge management is important outside of like support teams and customers too. Like it can also help out your other internal teams.
And can you talk about at Panther, what is the team structure? Is there like anyone who specifically is dedicated to knowledge management, or is it split across the team?
So in terms of like people that contribute to like our knowledge base, it's mostly our support team. We do have some people in across other teams that do contribute from time to time. And then like how we have it split up is we basically have like 2 tiers of contributors to the knowledge base. And actually shout out to Sally, since she's the one that implemented this at Panther. We have KD publishers who've been like vetted in the content that they're creating, and basically they can just go and create new content. And then we also have just like regular contributors, and those people go through like an approval process to ensure that like all of the content is meeting our standards to be like published to our customers or internally. But yeah, it's entirely our support team.
Got it. Danielle, how does that compare to what you guys have set up? Are there dedicated resources for knowledge management? Is it handled by you or other people on the support team?
Yeah, no, it's pretty similar. For us as well, it's mainly our support team. And I think I like it that way as well, because we have a lot of interaction. First, we're kind of familiar with how they like receiving information. So, for example, I think we're all guilty of not loving reading documentation, where our knowledge-based articles are kind of like, okay, for this hour, step 1, 2, 3, where our documentation is more focused on, oh, let me tell you all about this feature. So it's the support team, and we're a small but mighty support team. So there's 3 of us at the moment, and we all contribute to it. And we don't have a dedicated person. But again, I'm quite a fan of that, because it's just not one person's view or one person's information. It becomes like a shared collective. and I'm based in Europe, and the two other guys in my team are both based in America. So we'll always have someone on the answering tickets as they come in. But then we have it split up where you have your on queue time and your off queue time. So right now for our off queue time, the focus is on getting our knowledge base articles updated. So that's how we have it split, and it's working quite well so far.
And so do you have dedicated times of the day where, so you said on queue, off queue. So, hey, I'm the directly responsible individual for taking items off the queue during these hours. And then separately, there's an expectation that I'm writing content. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, exactly. So I could spend half my day, right? I'm on the queue. Any tickets that come in, I'll jump on, I'll answer. And then after that, when I have my off queue time, that's when I'll go and review what I've looked at. I'll be like, okay, this one doesn't have an article. Let's get one created. And then same for the next person. When I'm off queue, they'll be on queue, so we still have coverage. And then when they're off queue, they'll do the same with their articles, or if that's maybe the time they're learning, and it just continues that.
And can you give us a sense, like, is everyone 50/50 in terms of like time split, or are some people writing more content than others? Is there like a reason to distribute it differently?
So right now I'm 50/50, and then the two guys on my team, they're 80/20 kind of. It's just the way our time zones are working out to make sure that we always have someone on the queue. So for anything urgent, we can just flag straight away.
Awesome. So it's actually amazing. And I want to pause really quickly here. It's very rare that we find people who are so dedicated. Well, I guess the bigger you get, the more resources you generally have, but especially if you're a more lean team, it's hard to dedicate real resources towards writing content and keeping that up to date. So I just want to give a shout out. That's really hard to do. And it's awesome that you guys have prioritized that.
Well, Pylon has definitely helped us a lot there. And actually, with your introduction of Pylon, one thing that I find with using Pylon, and Marty did not pay me to say this, but I think Pylon really helps highlight the value that support brings to like the wider organization. I think sometimes that can get overlooked, but Pylon just makes it a lot more accessible for everyone to see, and a lot more visible that, oh, this was how easy it was to do. So let me do this quickly so I can show the other teams what we can bring to the table.
Awesome. Yeah, I will definitely double click on that. But Jess, I want to loop you in really quick. Give us a sense, what's the lay of the land at Canvas when it comes to how you think about knowledge management, and what does the team look like?
Yeah, so our team also very small but very mighty. There's 3 of us, and we actually encompass everything from implementation, onboarding, support, and anything in between. So we have one support agent who puts the most of her effort into the knowledge center while also being in the queue. So I aspire to be able to get to a point where we can have on queue and off queue. Shout out to Alyssa on that one. But we all contribute. So if there's something that, I'm answering a ticket and something comes up, I make sure that we update the article right then. Also, shout out to Pylon that it's easy to do right away. And we all, even after an article is written, the 3 of us will review it together, make sure that we have the same understanding so that we're supporting our customers in the same way.
Awesome. And can you give us a sense as well, like you're in the healthcare space, and I'm sure that's a little different. It might be a little different, I assume. Can you paint the picture of like what type of support you're getting, maybe like general volume and like where people are submitting tickets?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have some of our customers, we're the EHR, our customers are care delivery organizations. So they are actively caring for patients or supporting the people that are caring for patients. So there's urgency when they message in because it's likely impacting patient care right at that time. It's essential that we have this documentation, and it's easy to read, it's quick to reference, and unblocks them for what they need. Being healthcare, it's like I said, there's urgency, and we try to keep a very quick response time for that reason.
And do you feel like there are any differences that you have being in healthcare? Is it just like the priority and urgency of the requests, or do you think it's any different than traditional B2B companies?
Yeah, I actually do, because there's the layer of patient safety. So every ticket that comes in, if it's a user having, needing functionality, does that impact patient safety? Is that going to have a negative outcome on their patient? Could it cause harm? That's always at the top of our mind. And we always want to make sure we're enabling all of our users to have the resources that they need to give excellent care to their patients. So yeah, absolutely more complicated.
Awesome. Okay, Zach, I want to shift back to you. Let's get into knowledge management and kind of where we're going. So I guess, can you talk about how you've started to think about AI in your knowledge management workflows and kind of where you see that starting to go?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I never like had like the idea of like, oh, like how can AI help me? It's kind of like fallen into our lap when how we're going through, just like going through the support process. Like when like people started using Chat GPT, like our TSEs, starting to use that to like help improve their messaging, or like creating agents with Chat GPT to like reference our knowledge base and our documentation. And then like this like final step of, well, it's not the final step, but like the current step that we're in, where like the tooling that we're using, which is Pylon, has like been listening to us and its other customers, and has implemented some like really cool stuff that have just like made the lives easier of our support agents. And let me know if you want me to talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
Well, I guess people probably want specifics here. So yeah, what are like the details? So you mentioned like, AI starts coming out, Chat GPT starts getting used by everyone. And by the way, was the team concerned at all about like security stuff with like people pasting into Chat GPT? Was that ever like an internal discussion?
Yeah, I think like the two big discussion points like with ChatGPT was like, don't be an idiot and post like confidential information into it or whatever. And then the other part was, there are some times when I like see TSEs responding to customers with like the most obvious copied and pasted like ChatGPT answer. And I have to be like, this, like you could have said the same thing in like one sentence instead of like posting 4 paragraphs or whatever.
Did it
So yeah, like there's definitely
response
some like,
this finds you well?
oh, sorry, what were you saying?
The Chat GPT response is always, "I hope this finds you well," and then it's a good big giveaway.
Yeah, exactly. And so just making sure that TSEs are like proofreading what they're actually sending to customers, and like also making sure it sounds like them, and not like, someone else or whatever. I think were like the two big things, when they started adopting ChatGPT. But like one of the other cool things is we used to use Grammarly internally, and like that, like no one needed to use that anymore once TSE started like posting stuff in the Chat GPT.
Wow. And one thing I also want to highlight that you said is that instead of saying, hey, how can AI help me? Instead taking the approach of what are our current processes and like seeing how like AI could naturally be layered in. I feel like that's the correct way to approach it, because a lot of people, and then also in that way you're just optimizing what you already have. So you're going to get gains, right? It's like, hey, I do this process all the time. How do I make it faster, right? Or how do I not have to do it all the time? How do I not have to think about it? I think that's really important. And I feel like across not just like knowledge management, but just everywhere, we should be thinking that way instead. So yeah, that makes complete sense. Danielle, could you talk about how you've been thinking about AI and knowledge management, and maybe like we go a little deeper with you on like what workflows have you noticed, and like what were you guys doing before, and what have you started to try doing now with AI?
Yeah, so when I started, we weren't really using any AI for building out our processes. So it was a very painful time of going through Slack, reviewing cases, being like, okay, I'll document that. But AI is
And
definitely
really quick, were people sending messages into like a Slack channel for you, or like what when you say you were looking in Slack, like what do you mean?
Yeah, so we support customers through Slack, So we'll have shared Slack channels with them, and then we have a support triage channel where it will come through for us. So that was how I built up a lot of my knowledge when I started, was going back by case on case on case and finding out that way, because we didn't have like an internal knowledge base for me to go through there. So I was constantly finding out things that way. And when I wanted to start building out an internal knowledge base, it was just like copy paste, linking conversations, thinking like, how will I word this? Does this make sense? That kind of way. AI has definitely helped big time there, especially with Pylon has a generate article feature. And for me, that has been such a game changer, because with one click, I already have something to start with. And my manager always has the perfect metaphors to reference. So I remember previously I was just saying that I really want to find the time to create all these articles or like an FAQ section, but I was spending my time answering the questions, the exact same questions as they were coming in. So the metaphor he used was that cartoon of the two cavemen pushing a cart with square wheels, and someone says, oh, like, here's a circular wheel, and they're like, oh no, thanks, we're too busy. But with AI, I feel like I have the AI putting on those circular wheels for me while I'm still pushing the car. I don't actually need to stop myself and like pause what I'm doing to change. So that's been great. And as
And
well,
Danielle, just to go into more detail on that really quick, can you help us like visualize when you say like AI article generation, like how, what is that pulling from? Is that like all your past conversations, or like how does that work?
so the way we do it now is in Pylon, we'll have our issue. So that will be like the back and forth conversation with the customer. And previously, I would have just kind of like took snippets from it and my own knowledge and like built out that way. But now with just the generate article button, it does it for me. So it will summarize the conversation and any steps I've mentioned, any screenshots I've put in, or error messaging. And then obviously I know myself like, okay, we actually didn't touch on this specific error that comes up with this feature, but I know it does come up, so I'll just add it in there. And like that's been such a game changer, because I find that the hardest part is just starting. So like thinking like, okay, how would I say this? Which way would this flow the best? But with that, I just have a starting place. I can just like dump all my thoughts into it and it will fix it up for me. So I'm not worrying now about like, oh, I have to do this. I'll have to put time aside to do it. I can just get started, clean it up, and I have something to work on.
Yeah, 100%. It's actually incredible. We get this type of feedback all the time, and obviously use this feature a lot. And for the audience, it sounds so simple that you almost like gloss over what's actually happening. Like what Danielle just described is so simple and such a like if you've used ChatGPT ever, like it's a very obvious use case. Like, hey, take an existing ticket that we already had or conversation that we've already had with the customer and click a button to like have AI take that and generalize it into an article draft that you can then edit and like make into your own. So like basically think like the same thing as like copying a whole conversation that you've already had with the customer, put it into ChatGPT, tell it to write a knowledge-based article, and then going from there. But that is like operationalized now for you guys, right?
Yeah, 100%. And when I actually did an internal demo, I went through the flow of someone reaching out, and first the AI agent tries to answer it, but it's something that we don't have a knowledge base article on. So it gets routed to a support engineer. Then a support engineer gives the answer. And what I had said in our demo was that normally that might have been where it ended. So the next person, if they run into the same error, they have to look through Slack, look through any internal like Notion docs that we may have. But now with AI, we can just click to generate an article. Boom, the article's done. Next time when a customer reaches out, the AI agent has that information to just give them an answer straight away. So if they're running into the same error, they ask a question, straight away they have their solution. They don't have to wait like maybe 20 minutes, an hour for someone to be available. They can just fix it and move on while either evaluating or just using our product. And it makes it a lot more scalable, especially for like a team size like ours. It's just such a game changer to have something to do it all for you.
That's awesome. In that demo that you showed to the team, the AI, I assume, was able to answer the question automatically the next time that same
Yeah,
question was asked.
exactly.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, maybe a question for all three of you at once. Do any of you have specific guidelines that you're trying to establish for like how articles should look or feel or tone or anything like that? And Jess,
Yeah.
maybe priority with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we actually, this is our second version of our knowledge center, and our first version was there was no AI, and it was all human input, and it was a very specific template. If anybody has seen the YouTube video of the exact directions challenge, where the kids tried to tell their dad how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and they don't include all the steps, so he does them literally. That was the basis that we used. And at the time I was like, if a robot could do it, then that's how it should be written. And before AI was there. So that is coming back and is important because of our AI agents. And now we have a little bit looser template. It's a little bit more narrative. It's not that exact challenge. So the peanut butter and jelly sandwich would not be accurate. But it gives our users exactly what they need to know, and in a confined way. We also did enable the Pylon agent, which we found was answering pretty good most of the time, but we can definitely make our documentation and our knowledge better to make that agent even better. I think one thing, Danielle, you were talking about the article generation and how it takes that single article. One of the things that I'm super excited about is we also have this ability for an issue agent or an issue AI that will look past at our old responses across other tickets. So when we use that for a response and then create an article off of it, it's even more comprehensive using that generate article. So I'm super excited for that.
So basically, you're using AI to answer a customer question based off of previous customer responses you've given. And then at the end of that, you're generating an article based off of what the AI drafted for you.
Yeah,
So
basically. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Comprehensive all the way around. And it's super important, especially in healthcare. We have protected health information. Like, we have to be very specific about what AI has access to, what it doesn't, and how it's generated. So again, these articles are just a starting place, and we still have to go through them with our same process to make sure they're accurate. There's no harm to patients. Our users can, continue on with their workflow in the day when they're seeing 20, 30, maybe more patients a day. So yeah, it's great to have that starting place to be able to have a lifting point.
Yeah, and one thing I want to bring some attention to is, you mentioned the issue copilot. So basically, hey, drafting responses to customers. We find that for B2B, that's just way more practical in a lot of cases because you you care about the accounts a lot more. You're higher touch. The accuracy is way more important. Like if you have 1 million tickets per day, okay, like some people are going to get bad responses. That's okay. And frankly, the consumer questions are just much simpler. Like our observation has been that, if you're a consumer company, you probably have 80% of your questions that are pretty easily automatable with like the AI chatbot stuff that everyone's pushing, and brings a ton of value there because it's easy to quickly deflect those questions. But in B2B, it's like inverse. You have like maybe 20% of your questions that are simple questions that could be actually just straight deflected based on content. And the rest are actually way more complicated. You have to like go into a bunch of internal tools and like pull data right about the account and like look at the history with them and what you've discussed before. And so, yeah, I guess Zach, coming back to you, I guess how do you think about like automated responses versus kind of like co-piloty agent assist functionality, and how you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much like in the same boat from like what I've seen with, an AI agent versus like an AI assist in messaging. A lot of our customers, the questions that they ask are very custom. They're very specific. It's not super easy to just hit it with a KB article and nail it. Like the KB article is there to like assist. But one of the things that I wanted, the thing that Jess called out about the assist bringing up a message that was used in a ticket and then a KB was created. Like literally yesterday, one of our TSEs had shared that like this pretty complicated question came in, and they used the auto assist when generating their message, and it actually suggested like a very complicated but very correct workflow from over a year ago, from when that same TSE suggested it. And so I was like able to solve it, like done and dusted, and then like also KB. So it's like hearing her say like that's the workflow is just like so funny, because like it's super true.
And it's so cool. But one thing philosophically that we believe internally is that, especially for B2B, you should be really, really sensitive about not cross-pollinating data between customers. And so, for example, if you do turn on an AI chatbot, you in B2B, you really want it just pulling from public data sources or things that like you've human in the loop reviewed and like it's out there, right? And anyone could see it. Versus when you do like the issue copilot, like drafting a response for you, you can use more data for those previous responses because you'll have eyes look over it and verify that nothing's going out. So that is pretty incredible. That's like honestly amazing that that was something that happened. And yeah, I'm sure that's happened to us internally, but I have not heard that yet. Maybe we're getting so used to like these cool things that like it's starting to get normalized really fast. But we do have these like magical moments where it's like, oh wow, that like just works now. That's cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what are things that you've tried that haven't worked, and I'll like kind of open this up to everyone. Are there any like workflows or AI things that like you were bullish on but like kind of weren't successful, and any reasons why you think that? I'll kind of leave this open-ended for anyone.
Yeah, I'm happy to start with this one. So previously found that when we were trying to use an AI agent, that it was exaggerating a lot. Now, as you said, like with B2B, a lot of the issues that we come across and the answers, it's not just copy and paste, like there's a lot of different moving parts. So it was exactly that for us, where policies is a feature we have and it's done in a specific language, but the AI was given the answer for a different language, which would make like the policy useless. So I was really afraid then of letting like an AI agent be customer facing. But the new workflow and one we use now with Pylon is that it's only using information from our knowledge base center. So then we know what it's saying is accurate, it's like relevant, it's updated. And if it's not confident on it, instead of trying to answer and just like ruining the trust with the customer, it will just let them know like someone's going to answer this soon, and it's a lot more effective. But as well, because we have the AI agent, if someone's stuck and it's something we have documented, instead of them having to wait to get support from a human, they can get their issue resolved straight away if there is a knowledge base article.
And going a little deeper into that as well, are you, when you have played around with agents, have you gated them for only segments of customers, or have you segment like certain types of issues, or have you tried that, or are you letting, or have you tried just letting it run for all like first passes?
Yeah, so the way we tried it previously was kind of all first passes, but it was just to the support engineer. So it was more like a co-pilot, and it was like, this is what I would answer. And we were like, well, it's great that you didn't answer it with that because it's not accurate.
We did something similar and actually turned it on just for our Slack customers. And it has like, as soon as the agent responds, it says, hey, I'm your AI agent. Like, I'm going to be here. Don't worry. I'll escalate to a human. And it was really well received, even when the answers weren't totally perfect. So our customers are very generous with their time and patience in relation to their AI agent.
And one thing, Zach, I want to loop you in on something. So I think a lot of people in other industries, when they think about agents, they're like making them try to impersonate humans, which I actually think does not work in support. Like people get really mad if you're like, hey, this is Anna from support, and it's like you're tricking them, right? You're making it seem like there's someone who isn't. And so, Zach, can you talk about like how the profile that you created for Panther and yeah, what that bot looked like?
Yeah, so I mean, we named it Peter Panther, and then we like did an AI generation for the image, and then in its canned messaging, we obviously, the thing that we wanted to call out, because our TSCs have really good relationships with their customers. We don't want an agent impacting the relationship our support team members have. We called out the obvious of like, hey, I'm an agent, and I'm not going to just like keep messaging you. I'm gonna like take a crack at this, and if it's not okay, like I'll get you over to like a smarter person that like can answer this for you or whatever. So like very obvious AI guy that is trying.
Yeah, and we've seen that across the board. We actually initially, for our own product, when you're in the create agent flow, we initially bought like this pack of human faces that you could like stick onto the AIs, and we found no one was using them. People thought it was super creepy, and it was just like not cool. And especially if you're trying to pretend to be a person and then you respond incorrectly, that just makes your company look so bad, right? And so it's better to just get ahead of it, even maybe say like AI beta, and like that way like it's like, okay, like it's a beta, you guys are trying out, like it's not the real thing. So highly recommend when people do start trying to implement whatever conversational agents or AI chatbots, that they don't try to fake a person. They try to make it clear that this is just a first pass attempt to help speed up the process.
We have similar with our one that it will say like, hey, I'm in training. I may not like always hit the mark, but I'm here to help. And it kind of reminds me, I think it was Duolingo, that one of their notifications now, after like constantly trying to remind you to do your lessons, is that, oh, these notifications don't seem to be working, like I'll stop. And I think they'd said that with that notification, like people kind of like felt bad and was like, oh no, like it's not working. So they returned to their lessons. And it just makes me think that's quite similar when the AI bot's like, oh, I might not always get it right, but I'll try. It's nearly like you feel some sort of sympathy, and it's like, no, it's okay, you're doing your best, this is fine.
We saw the same thing. We actually had some of our customers like saying good job to our bot, which was fun to see.
I know, I'm like a proud parent whenever I see it has answered it correctly, and I'm like, oh, this is weird, but I'm so proud.
And one of the things to point out as well is when we do think about knowledge management, it's not only, pre-AI, it was the source of truth for self-serving your own support, right? So, hey, if you're Googling or you go to the help center and search something, you can answer your own question. It's even more important now because that knowledge is now powering everyone's like drafting capabilities. So if they want like the AI to take a first pass, it's powering like the conversational agents. So really it's crazy when people come to us and they're like, hey, I want to implement AI, we're like, okay, what does your knowledge base look like? That's like our first question. And if they don't have a knowledge base, it's like, okay, well, what's the AI going to learn from? Like where's the data going to pull from? And so everything actually has to start with that knowledge base being really clean. And so anything you can do to just make it more efficient, that process of identifying what to write, and actually writing the articles with like AI article generation, as we've discussed, ends up being super important. I guess moving to like kind of upstream in that flow of identifying what to write, has anyone tried anything to kind of like help them figure out what content is missing, or how to even think about what to prioritize?
I'll start on that one. There's actually in the chat right now, there was a great question about exactly that. And I think all of us who use Pylon are super lucky to have the AI option of knowledge gaps. So it looks back at our tickets and it can say, if a single ticket needed a new article, it can also find trends and certain images or ideas that need it, and then you can again generate an article and it will show you the 2010 tickets that are associated to it and use all of that data to generate the article. Before that, it was, oh, we realize we don't have the article when somebody asks the question, and it goes into a backlog and it waits until you can update it on your own. So I think those two of the gaps and the articles that are needed specific to a ticket really accelerate exactly what we need to do.
Yeah. Anyone else, Danielle, have you thought about gaps or implemented those or planning to?
Yeah, so one way, this was actually today, and it was more for future proofing. We changed basically something in a module, and any of our customers currently using it, we're going to need to update it. So we had this whole conversation about like why they need to update it and what steps they need to take and stuff like that. So from that, I could just generate an article that was specific for people upgrading from the previous one to the new one rather than setting it up. I could also use the AI agent to say, okay, what customers have talked about this that may be using it. And then again, with Pylon, I could just send a broadcast to all those customers specifically using it to be like, hey, we see you're using this. Here's an article for how to upgrade it. And like, it's so nice when all the different features come together. And I think definitely for support, being proactive like that, where it's like, hey, this is going to break in the future because of some changes, but this is what you can do now to get ahead of it. And this is a knowledge-based article specific to you. So they're not having to kind of like read around it and guess which parts are and aren't. It's just straight away there for them, and they don't run into an issue further down the line where they just get frustrated.
Got it. And Zach, what about you? What process before or I guess current and where you're going? Has there been like how do you guys identify what to write content for, and how are you thinking about that moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, for every, support interaction, our TSCs try to like follow, understanding the customer issue, using their resources, search the KV, search docs, search Slack, like ask someone else, ask engineering, when they find that answer, if it's outside of those resources, create a new resource and use that to share with the customer. So we try to shorten the gap by incorporating that process in the actual ticketing process. But we've talked about already, there are things that we miss, there are things that aren't there, and I think Pylon has a really good way at identifying potential knowledge base articles or like missing gaps. And like another thing that falls into this, which actually isn't like a knowledge gap thing, it's the opposite problem. But one of the cool things that Pylon can do, and I know we're all just like, Pylon does these things, but
Yeah, I'm sorry, by the way. It's when we talk about what's next, it's platform stuff, right? It's the tools we use. Yeah.
It is, but I mean, like Pylon does do these things and they work really well. So we're going to talk about them. And so like one of the things that you can do is like when you're generating an article, you have the ability to see if there's potential duplicate articles. And so it helps you maintain the health of your knowledge base. So you don't just have like a bunch of duplicate articles, which is like in the past, like something miserable to sort through, right? Like knowledge base cleanup and maintenance is like a huge piece of it and is kind of a nightmare unless you stay on top of it.
Yeah. I'll also say, I'm sure everyone's had this experience before, both on the panel and listening. We hear like the Franken-desk story all the time. So you come into a new team, new company, and like you have no context on everything that's been written, right? It's literally just a crazy hodgepodge of like potentially hundreds of articles. I think that's like a very obvious place where it could help, right? Of just like, hey, like you're about to write an article, something already exists just like it. Like it just makes sense, right? It's one of those things where like you weren't even doing it before manually, or maybe you would try, but it's just so hard to do manually and so like frustrating and not useful. And Jess, I know you had something to say too.
Yeah, the other side of that too is, like I said, we're working on V2 of our knowledge center. So we have all of our old documents as we're rewriting them, and that duplicate article notification has come in really handy a couple times, just to stop our customers from having confusion of like, oh, do I do it this way or this way? So yeah, it's fantastic.
Awesome. Okay, so we're about at that time where we should move to Q&A, and we have a bunch of questions. I'm going to summarize some of what we've discussed. So And actually, sorry, there's one more question, one really important question, and if all of you could kind of just share quickly, how has the team received using the AI stuff? Like, is it because some people are concerned, oh, this is going to make my life, or I don't know, it's like fearing my job, or maybe it's like going to make my job like more robotic because I'm just pressing a bunch of buttons. Yeah, like give what about honest reception on yeah, how it's been for the team internally.
For us, it has went down really well, especially because I think the AI agent and the knowledge base articles, they can help a lot with the repetitive stuff, but maybe not as much with the issues that take like a lot of investigation and troubleshooting. And for us as engineers, that's kind of the more fun issues. But a lot of times you get stuck with the repetitive issues and like explaining something or sending document links that you don't have as much time to deep dive on these issues that like you're excited to investigate. So that's one way that we're looking at it, is like it's taken away like kind of the grunt work, and then we're available to like deep dive and troubleshoot the issues that we're actually excited about and that like you've no idea what could be. There's a lot of different moving parts. So for like my support team, we're very excited about that. But for other teams, such as like the product team, like I'm very lucky in Spacelift that our product side knows there's a lot of value in our customer interactions. But previously, like they'd ask me like, oh, what customers should we reach out to ask about like this feature we want to release? And I just kind of have to like take some time to think like, okay, who have I had conversations with around this? Search Slack. But now with the Ask AI feature we have on our issues, that can just search and do it for me, which makes it a lot more accessible for me and for them. So we can grow a lot more of a customer focused product and like customer focus based on like real information and real conversations that we've had just in like the matter of minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And our team has embraced all of the tools that we've been given. We were probably doing it ad hoc as before with ChatGPT or whatever other tool we had. So having it all in one place, and it goes beyond knowledge management. Like you said, Danielle, it's the searching across all the tickets and not having to remember every single detail, and finding things easy. That really gives us that little bit of edge to have some more time to do the fun things.
Zach, any quick, yeah.
No, same boat. The TSCs love it.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so let's hop into the Q&A section, and we'll just start from the top. So, and by the way, if you don't see where the Q&A is on the right, there's like that sidebar, and chat, I think, is the default, but you can go to the Q&A is the third tab. And so first one, okay, so Ravi, after an article gets generated from a customer conversation, do you have an approval mechanism before publishing? And if you're a big company, how do you manage all these generated articles? I think, Zach, you're probably a good person on, you mentioned approval workflows already. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah, and it's basically, for us is what I mentioned earlier. For specific people who have, vetted content that is like been solid for an extended amount of time, they can just publish things without having an approval without having to get someone's review. But for our TSEs that are, more junior, we have an approval process where basically they ask for someone's review, they review it, and do a little back and forth. They need some more information, and then once it's up to snuff, we publish it that way. And so that's how we do it here at Panther.
And just tactically, can you describe like how does someone ask for review?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so like currently how we're doing it in Pylon is we use comments. And so we'll tag someone else and be like, hey, this is ready for review. And then, the reviewer will be like, hey, it looks like blah, 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 or like is missing whatever. Can you check on this? The other person's like, all right, I did it. And then we're like, all right, good to go, publish it. But what we'd love feature requests is having like an actual approval style and like a queue within the system, because that's what we've done in the past with other knowledge-based platforms. And so we're just waiting for Pylon to give us that type of workflow.
Totally. As you were describing that, I was like in pain listening to the comment workflow, which for anyone who's listening, basically imagine like Google Docs style, you highlight something and like tag someone, and then that'll like, DM them in Slack, hey, whatever message or comment that was left. So yeah.
We use that same workflow, and it's a little painful, but it's not horrible.
There we go. See, this is how you know this is the truth. The truth is coming out here. So it's not all AI magic. Okay, cool. Let's go to Jackie's question. So how to balance the use of AI and loss of hands-on skills, for example, using AI to create content versus writing the content yourself. Danielle, I feel like you might have an opinion here.
Yeah, definitely. So I hate writing content, and I think part of it is like a lot of our customers are based in America. And I've realized the past few years there's a big difference between like what I speak, which is kind of Irish English, and American English. And I'll write an article previously or even a Slack message, and I'll think it's fine. And I'll send it to someone, and they'll be like, what does that mean? And I'll realize, oh, okay, that must be Irish English. But with AI, it kind of does it for me in American English. And I think actually improves my skills more so than me losing them, because I'm still reviewing the articles, I'm still making any changes, but I'll read something and I'm like, okay, yeah, saying it that way or like this style of flow actually works a lot better than what I would have had. So yeah, I definitely think it's actually improving my skills each time more so than losing them.
And maybe the heart of the question might also be around like losing, I guess, let me see. I guess, yeah, hands-on skills. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. And I guess, does it feel like you need to know less about the topic the article is being generated into, or do you still need to maintain the same level of like knowledge around it?
I'd say definitely for now, we're still maintaining the same level of knowledge, because anything that is in the article, like we should make sure like that is the truth before we publish it. But it's also being helpful if it adds something extra and we're like, oh, where did that come from? And then we can see it was like referenced in this issue. We can go look at that issue and be like, oh, okay, I didn't know like that feature also had this little extra part. So again, it's just improving it that way that like not only you're having to go from scratch and kind of, okay, this is all I know, but I hope that's it. Whereas with the AI, it has all the information available that you can then go through and be like, okay, maybe that's not 100% applicable. Like we kind of went a bit off tangent with that conversation, but this is, and I didn't actually know that. So you're kind of constantly learning from it as well.
Yeah, and one thing to point out is that if you're doing AI article generation, that's coming from responses that you've given to customers. So you basically have to already have had the like background and information to know what to say, or someone on your team at least had to. And then really like the article generation is just taking work you've already done and just like really putting it in a different format that is just like more generalized. So maybe that's like another way to think about it. Jackie, another question for you. What ethical considerations should we keep in mind when using AI in the knowledge management space? I will open that up for whoever wants it.
I think for us, it's ethical, yes. We also, like I said before, we have protected health information that is in our tickets that, we have to make sure that that is filtered out and is not included in anything that could be shared across customers or even publicly. So I think that's one of the biggest considerations we take, whether that's ethical or not. I'm not sure if that aligns.
I think that counts. Yeah. Danielle, okay, question directly for you. What are the sources of knowledge-based gaps, and how do you figure out what topics you need to create an article? I think maybe you already covered this, but if you want to like re-summarize.
Yeah, definitely. So right now, the way our flow works is that as we're closing out articles, we'll either mark them as they need an article, or maybe it's an article that needs to be updated, or there already is an article. So that way we're kind of not missing anything. Obviously, the downside of that is it's just as they're coming. Another way that I know now Pylon has knowledge gaps that will kind of tell us what's happening, so we don't need to worry about that as much. But another way that we did it was with AI, again, it could automatically tag issues that maybe we had a lot of features about like or a lot of issues around the user management feature. So we could have our dashboard with which features were the highest case drivers. So user management, for example, we could click in that and be like, okay, we definitely need some articles around this. This issue comes up a lot. Let's focus on that. So at the start, it was kind of looking at what were our case drivers and what could we get articles out to reduce the amount of tickets that we were getting. And now it's just closing them as they come and making sure there's an article there. So we're constantly like scaling up as it comes, and it just makes our life a lot easier.
Awesome. Okay, I know we're right at the end here, so I want to be conscious of time. I really want to thank everyone for, panelists, Jess, Danielle, Zach, thank you so much for being on the panel. This has been great. Thank you for also giving Pylon some shout outs. I really appreciate that. And yeah, for everyone, we'll send out a recording of this afterwards. Also, I know like as we were talking about this, some of it is kind of unclear unless you can visually see some of like what was discussed. Like it's kind of crazy to be like, okay, when you say AI article generation, do you actually mean AI writes the article, or like how does that actually work in practice? We'll send just like a recording, kind of just explaining like how you can run some of those workflows as well. So yeah, thank you everyone so much for coming. Thank you to the panelists. Really appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom. You are trailblazers here, obviously, and clearly a lot of people want to hear from you. So yeah, appreciate your time, and thank you to everyone who joined, and shout out to Richard, support driven team for making this happen. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.